This is the Breakfast Leadership Podcast. Boundaries or burnout, you make the choice. Here's your host, Michael Levitt. Welcome to the Breakfast Leadership Podcast. This is Michael Levitt, and today I have a special guest named Michael Greenberg. Michael is the founder of callforcontent.com and is the author of the Authority Marketing Playbook, which helps businesses find their voice and grow their organizations. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thanks, Michael. It's good to be on.
Thank you. Tell me about Authority Marketing Playbook. I'm really curious as to why you wrote this book and what your hopes were when you published it.
Yeah. So first off, I want to define authority marketing because I think that's probably the part that's a little more complicated than a playbook. And authority marketing, for my purposes, is the act of positioning yourself as an authority or expert in your field in order to bring you more business. And it's usually accomplished using some sort of social proof to prove either authority from others in the field or of expertise using something like a case study. And so the playbook is essentially the first steps that I recommend any business owner take in positioning their business as an authority or positioning themselves as an authority. And it came out of me working with a smaller size client that I couldn't serve that well, and realizing that really they just needed something that could tell them this is the starting point, and it put them in the perfect position to then be able to come work with someone like me or somebody who has that next more advanced level of marketing.
After you wrote the book, what surprised you about it when you were engaging entrepreneurs and solopreneurs that had picked up the book? Was there any surprises that came out along the way?
Yeah, actually. I come from a software development background, so I put everything into an open beta. And I put the book into an open beta about 9 months ago now, and just as a Google Doc that anybody could comment on online. And I put it in a job posting I had up at the time where I was hiring writers, and I put it in a couple private forums and Slack groups. And I ended up getting so many comments on the book that the Google Doc just stopped working properly and could not load.
Wow.
So at that point, I realized that you really can, for content, test it very early on. And that was a huge shift for me in the way that I looked at developing these larger pieces of content that I call tentpole content now. Because if you can really put it out there, then I got my information and I got feedback from people for free, months before I actually launched the book. And since then, I've found that I make more business off services than people reading the book. So that's why I'm going to be, and actually am now, giving it away for free at callforcontent.com/am, because I realized that I'm just not into the product business. I'm in the service business.
Yeah, and that's an awakening that many entrepreneurs discover after, they launch their organization and they determine, instead of planning on growing their business from a particular product, that the service side of things is really where their strengths are. And the book or other products that they've created that they thought that they were going to sell, they find that oftentimes it's better for them to give away their quote-unquote best stuff for free, because it will lead to stuff that's even bigger and better for them and the clients that they serve.
Exactly. And so for us now, my mission, the mandate that I've given out to everyone in the company is just, if we have something that works or we do something that works for a client, we want to turn that into content and give it away. Because at the end of the day, it's the skill we have that sells our business.
Yeah, that's a great way to go about it, because I've heard, and I forget who said it, but basically if someone asks them the same question 3 or 4 times, then they should probably create a product for it. And in your instance, you would create it and say, here it is, go run with it and utilize it. And then people, again, as we all know, people work with people that they know, like, and trust. And if you're giving them products that you're not necessarily charging them for, that's making their life better, there's going to be a natural desire to work with you and your group to figure out, okay, how can I get from this level to the next level?
Exactly. And that's really, communicating that is really what authority marketing is all about. And whereas I've always looked at it from the top-down approach, it wasn't until I got that flood of comments when I actually released the book into beta that I got the bottom up. And I really saw that there is something to this.
What would you say to a solopreneur or an entrepreneur that's just starting? They know their stuff, they know their product, they've got their niche market planned out, they know who their audience is, but they're really not sure where to start as far as establishing themselves as an authority in their particular space. What would be some advice that you'd provide them?
So this is actually the exact advice in the book, and I'll reference a few things here that you can go pick up from it, templates, that sort of thing. But I would recommend interviewing your ideal customers. If you really know who, then you should be able to get a list of 10 of them together and ask them to go on a call for market research. And if you can't convince one person to go on a call for market research about this thing you're trying to sell, then it's not really an issue for them. And if it's not really an issue for them, then it's not really worth selling for you to them, which means you don't have a good fit in your service or product. And beyond that, when you do get on the call with them, ask the same questions to people every time. Ask a structured list. Find out where they consume content and what kinds of content they consume. We've got questions. We've got a whole list, the generic template that I build custom ones off of for clients in the AMP, in the Authority Marketing Playbook. That's my shortened name for it. And with those, you just want to find out where they live online or offline if they're not online. And then you go there and you create content for them. And if you interview them and you ask the right questions, then you'll know what content they consume, what format, be it a podcast, be it a blog, be it just on Twitter. And you'll be able to get in contact and interact with them.
That's absolute gold advice because, again, too many people that are starting off in their business are spinning their wheels trying to figure out how do I engage with the audience. And I think also, too, if entrepreneurs don't understand what the pain points are of the people that they're trying to serve, then, like you said, you're going to have a product that no one will really want to buy because it's not really a pain for people. So that's a great thing. Tell me, now obviously I'm an author as well, and one of the things I enjoyed about actually releasing a book and writing a book was the fact of, number one, completing something, but two, leaving something that actually really makes a dent in the universe as far as what people are trying to accomplish and what they want to do with your lives. What's the one thing about your book that you're most proud of?
It's honestly the longest thing I've ever written. That's definitely the thing I'm most proud of because I hated writing all through school and never expected myself to end up in content. And this is really the product of me learning about the industry and coming into content creation from kind of an odd angle, and then finding a system that worked for me. And I ended up writing the first draft of the book in just about a week. I just showed up with it. I had a coach at the time who was helping me map things out, and I'm like, I'm going to write this before the end of the year. And then I hit my flow and I wrote it in a week. And that was huge for me because writing had never been something that came easily before.
Well, it came naturally to you in this situation because it's content that you strongly believe in and understand and can articulate to your audience and really and help people out. So that was a major accomplishment on your part because, yeah, if for those that despise writing, the thought of writing, much less a blog post, but an actual physical book could be a gigantic hurdle, but kudos to you for getting past that and publishing a book that's going to help many, many people. Now, one of the things we talk about on the Breakfast Leadership podcast is, of course, boundaries and burnout. So I'm curious, in your experience in writing the book, and you said that you got it done pretty quickly. I know many authors wish they could kick out a book that quick, but during the experience of going through this, did you experience any challenges with time boundaries, or even in your career, have you ever experienced burnout situations that really impacted how you went about living?
Oh yeah, definitely. I actually the first time I went to school, I ended up having most of my department poached back to the private sector. And so I dropped out of school, moved to Mountain View, California, and joined coding boot camp out there right when they were starting to become like an industry. So I learned to code, got hired by a startup, and then got placed in a pretty impossible position as a CTO, where I was not at the time qualified to be the project manager that I was asked to be, and my development team was vastly underskilled. And so that put me in the position of never being able to deliver. I wasn't a good enough coder to build it myself either. And so I burned out pretty hard over that next year and a half. And I ended up taking about a year off to figure out what I was doing. And that's when I started mentoring and started consulting during that year off. And that's when I found what I really enjoyed doing, which was consulting and helping other people build their businesses.
That's a powerful story, and a very good friend of mine, has a quote where he says, "Tragedy creates opportunity," and burnout is very tragic for many of us. And the fact that you recognized it and you took that time to actually really look within and figure out, okay, what do I want to do? Because you knew that that role that you were in wasn't the right fit, and it was unfortunate that that organization put you in that space. But I think a lot of organizations unfortunately do that, where they'll put people in spots that may not be the ideal situation. They can grow into it, but sometimes if they don't provide the proper resources and training to allow you to grow, it definitely can lead to burnout, second guessing yourself, and everything else.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that's one of the big things that since I've looked at when I work with clients and tried to push them away from those scenarios. So I personally ascribe now to a system that I call lazy entrepreneurship, which limits my time in any one project so that I don't burn out on it. And so call for content, I work on 10 to 15 hours a week. And that's my hard max, where if I go over that, I have to start outsourcing. And that's how I've built up that business, and that's how I build my other practices and various projects as well. And anything under $25 an hour is immediately outsourced because that's just not worth my time.
And that's crucial. I think many entrepreneurs, they don't outsource fast enough. A good colleague of mine has said, outsource the stuff before, almost just before you're ready to. You may not be fully ready, but you're focusing on the things that only you can do. And you're letting other people do those other things, which, again, you could do them, but then you run into the situation where you're doing everything, and then that's going to limit your organization, your ability to grow, and definitely have a huge impact on your 15 hours a week, which is an incredible way to, go about, living. You are making a huge contribution, and you're putting in, that amount of time on that. Now, I'm sure there's other things you do as well, but that's that's something that I think every entrepreneur should aspire to, is figuring out, okay, how do I create something, whatever my product or service is, to help humanity, but how do I do it in such a way where I can actually have time to enjoy life and not be grinding, not trade my 9 to 5 for a 9 to 9 type of deal.
Yeah. And I'd say at that same time, you might not be able to build a single thing that can support you, but you might have a system that works in concert. So I have podcasts that I host that work to help build my network and build social capital for me, that help me then work on Call for Content and on other ventures that I build out. And so I look at it from the holistic perspective of the system of projects I'm working on, rather than the individuals at many times.
That's great. Well, we're almost ready to wrap up, but I want to ask a couple more questions. Number one, what's one thing that you're working on right now? Obviously, you don't have to, share client names or anything like that, but one thing that's really exciting you right now you're really enjoying working on.
Yeah, I'm working with a good friend of mine who I got to know actually through that first startup. And we just reconnected about 6 weeks ago now. And now we're working together on making sure he gets his book out this year, among other things. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, that's great. I mean, you know how to get a book done and out the door. So now you can share that knowledge with people that you've met. And congratulations for reconnecting with somebody in a situation that definitely wasn't ideal back then, but now you can work with them in a different light. So I always like giving guests the opportunity to share how people can reach out to you and how to find you, and anything else that you would like to promote today.
Yeah, so you can find me on social media or Medium at Gent of Tech. That's GENTOFTECH. You can also find anything that I'm writing about content creation or content marketing or authority marketing online at callforcontent.com. And then you can find the authority marketing playbook at callforcontent.com/AMP/M.
Well, thank you for that. And audience, we will definitely put all of that in the show notes so you can find that information. So again, Michael, I want to appreciate your time today and thank you for being a part of this show. I've learned a lot of stuff and I've taken a lot of notes, and we'll definitely listen to the episode again for some great tips, and definitely will recommend your book to every entrepreneur I know, because I think it will help them take the right steps. I've often said to people, shortcuts don't really help because you end up having to go back and do something. But if you take the right steps, you'll be recognized in your own space as the authority. And again, appreciate your time today, and thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. All right, until next time, everybody, be well.